Let me do a few tricks, some old and then some new tricks. I'm very versatile.
Greetings from Castle Gory, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well. Oh dear, all sorts of excitement. So, without further ado, I am going to plunge right in with what APR has to say. Lady C, I saw your interview with Andy Signor on Popcorn Palace. I commend you for sticking to the facts of Meghan's conduct. Thank you very much. And how the incident at Birkenhead seemed to be a turning point in her relationship with the press. Can you tell us anything about how you cover this sensitive subject in your updated book? Oh dear. Well, may I say first of all that an interview is never the place to delve deeply into sensitive matters, especially matters which have huge consequences for not only individuals who are connected to the subject, but people nationally and internationally. The virtue of a book is you have the time and space and luxury of developing a thought and a theme and laying it out in a very measured, concrete, factual, legalistic, and unemotional way, so that the facts speak for themselves. There is a legal term, res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. That is not easily accomplished in an interview with anybody, but to the extent that I am capable of addressing what are really very important issues in an interview or in a broadcast of this nature, I am happy to do so. But I am always mindful of my responsibility to all the people concerned, not the least of which I have to tell you is myself, because I need to be very mindful of never straying into territory that could be legalistically bothersome. Let us put it that way. Now, having said all of that, so that we're quite clear as to the fact that if you really want to know and see how the subject is covered comprehensively, you need to do it in the book. Now, I'm not saying this because I am touting for sales. I'm not touting for sales. I am laying down the parameters which, if I do not lay them down, I open myself personally, I open this channel, I open all of the people involved into difficulties that should not arise. Okay? Now, having said that, this is a subject that, Meghan's conduct has raised questions that and caused people generally, especially women who have had children, to ask questions about her conduct during Archie's gestational period. Now, I have gone into a fairly forensic examination in the book, not only as to her conduct, but the ramifications of her conduct and the possible reasons for her conduct, all of which are valid legally. I will make one point. The Birkenhead incident took place on the 14th of January 2020. Or was it 2019? Must have been 2019. They left in 2020. 2019, I'm afraid. Contemporary dates are not my strongest point. I'm at the age where 2 years, 5 years, 15 years, it's all almost the same. Anyway, it was 2019, because Archie was born in 2019. On the 14th of January 2019, Harry and Meghan went on a visit to Birkenhead. They were already aware of the fact that there were complaints about their bullying behavior towards the staff as a result of certain incidents that had happened, and Jason Knopf had written to Simon Case. So you need to bear in mind that there was something else that had started some months before. The press were very gentle about reporting, and very cautious would be a better word. And they were careful what they said and how they said it. And with hindsight, they were extremely measured. Then Meghan, of course, arrives from her Antipodean trip with an absolutely huge belly that she presents very proudly, as if she were a watermelon seller, and that her body was now a carrier of watermelons, as she took to the stage, to the consternation of everybody, at the Royal Albert Hall in December. She was not, in terms of the gestational period, she was not very pregnant, but she was huge, to such an extent that the Daily Express commented on it. And of course, she did the belly clutching, which she never stopped doing. Well, Meghan and Harry, having antagonized the staff and having, I need to explain this, the way things work at the palace briefly, but I go into it in some detail in the book. Meghan and Harry's bullying of their staff had caused consternation at the palace. Now, there are always employees at the palace who, and I'm not referring to senior level employees, I'm referring to junior level employees, who used to work at the palace because it was prestigious and they were monarchists and they did it for the kudos. Now an awful lot of them do it because it looks great on their CV, and after a year or two or three, they can move on to being employed by some billionaire or multimillionaire. So there is an opportunistic element to staff now that there never used to be. But I'm not blaming the staff totally, by the way, because I will say that the royal employees do not earn a great deal of money, and the loyalty used to be a two-way street, and I'm afraid there have been a lot of potholes in that street as time has developed and cost cutting, etc. So I just put all of that in context so you understand what was going on and the motivation for why some junior employees will leak information to the press. And of course, they had the valid motivation of protecting the senior members of staff who were being bullied. So it was a win-win for them because they weren't exactly being disloyal, even though they were. They were being protective and earning a little bit of money on the side. So that's how the press find out things like she was known as Duchess Difficult, etc. They're not briefed by the senior courtiers. The information is leaked by the juniors for money. So the press were reporting upon that, but very measuredly. Then, and so Meghan and Harry are already aware that their reputation is coming in for some examination. And she appears at Birkenhead, and there's a photograph in my book, and that is there for all to see from Getty Images, where the bump, which was a massive and in her abdominal cavity when she arrived, was no longer in her abdominal cavity, but was between her legs, by her knees. Well, that is the point at which, if you go by what Meghan and Harry have said, the dates they have given and her explanations of how desperate she became about what was being said about her, that is the point at which one has to validly ask the question, what were they really worried about? Were they really worried about the fact that she was being called Duchess Difficult and they wanted to shut the press down because of that, which is their narrative? Or were they worried about the fact that the press might start to ask questions about the extraordinary performance of the baby bump? So, with all of the ramifications thereafter. Now, as I said, this is not the forum to go into any great detail and to examine the matter in any great depth or indeed breadth, because the subject is extremely broad, because it touches upon their relationship with the press thereafter, their conduct thereafter, their claims, her claims as to her curled up in a ball 2 days later, when she definitely wasn't, because she was at the Mayhew Animal Centre. So the timeline is very unreliable, let's put it that way. And I cover the subject comprehensively because it affects the line of succession. It affects the reputation of the monarchy. It does nobody any favours. And I show in the book how Meghan's conduct and then their desire to shut down the press so that the press would not report on the observations of the journalists, the photographers, and then the public. Because let's remember, the mainstream media never covered this. This is people going on to Getty Images and seeing the photographs. People seeing footage of Meghan greeting people at, I can't remember what it was. I think it was something to do with the Commonwealth, in a black and white dress, as Archie, having shown everybody at Birkenhead that he had prenatal diving skills, is then showing everybody as she bounces up with her hand extended in greeting, that he has the most wonderful way of cha-cha-ing. He cha-cha, cha-cha, cha-cha to the left, cha-cha to the right, cha-cha to the left, cha-cha to the right, as Mama goes to greet people. And these are all factors, and these are all facts, actually, that led members of the public to begin to question what was going on, because there is no doubt that Meghan's behaviour during the gestational period was remarkable and well worth remarking upon. And it was remarked upon, not by the mainstream media, but by the public who were observing what was going on and previously had no forum to make themselves known or their feelings and observations heard, but gratis the internet now did. The mere existence of such a topic, the mere existence of such questions is dangerous and is inappropriate and needs, in my opinion, to be resolved. And ignoring it is not the resolution that I would like to see. The resolution I would like to see is contained in rather more detail in the book than I am able to articulate now. But you see, as I point out in the book, Meghan has done a series of things, and her behaviour and her actions have created a series of scenarios which appear to put the royal family and the crown generally in a no-win situation. But that is actually not so. Because if the matter is handled in a particular way by the royal family, all of the doubtful motivation that has or can be directed in their direction is redirected at source, namely Meghan. But this is not the time to say more than that. This is also not the forum. I would suspect that after people have read the book and ask particular questions, I can then rather more safely address the issue than it would be comforting to do at this juncture. So I hope that answers the question. Michelle Klein says, Lady C, very interested in your book. In the US, I believe they said Amazon will have it. How will I tell it's the new edition? Many thanks. Well, it's really simple. The old edition has a totally different photograph on the cover from the new edition. The new edition has Meghan with her hair scraped back, looking as what? Well, actually, somebody said to me, "Who did your techie people enhance Meghan's eyes? Did they alter them?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, that's her eyes in the photograph are very reminiscent of Charles Manson's eyes." Well, I didn't choose the photograph, I have to tell you. So no credit goes to me, but I have observed before that Meghan's eyes are very reminiscent of Charles Manson's. And indeed, there have been studies done by medical people on certain personality types, and they do characteristically have certain expressions and stares and eyes, for want of a better word, all around the eyes that are indicative. So, but the new edition says, the title is Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, which is both editions. The new one says that it is updated, that it is the updated edition, and it has the subtitle of Persecutors or Victims. So you need to look for persecutors or victims, and do not, unless you want to buy the original version, do not buy a book that doesn't have persecutors or victims. That is the theme of the book, which is an entirely different theme from the original edition of the book. So I make that point for what it's worth. I wouldn't want people spending their money on something they don't want. Okay? Sorry. I'd much rather do without my bit, whatever it's called. I get a percentage. I forget what the percentage is. But anyway, I can do without it. I want people to be happy. Vula Dracopulus says, Hi, Lady C. Could you please let us know when your book will go on Audible? Thank you very much. This is a question that many people have asked. And I checked with my publisher. He doesn't do the Audible. The Audible is done by an entirely different publisher who publishes Audible books, and they only decide that they're going to bring out an Audible edition if they think it's going to make them money. So, more than that, I'm sorry, I can't be helpful with. Okay, sorry. Colleen Boyd says, "Hello, Lady C. I have very much enjoyed your interviews with Avid Gardner, Steph, and Popcorn Palace. I was just on Instagram, and the entire Sussex Squad is out for your blood. Seems they have been given the order to attack you. Congratulations. You must have the gruesome twosome of Montecito shaking in their boots. Keep up the great work. The truth must hurt. Well done." Well, as you can see, my dear, I'm quivering and quaking. I'm absolutely terrified. First of all, I don't even waste my time looking at rubbish like that, so they can say anything they want as long as it's not defamatory. Let them invent, let them froth at the mouth. I couldn't care less. I don't listen to them, I don't look at them, I don't know what they're about, and I couldn't care less. The Sussex Squad. The SS doesn't frighten me. Not at all. And they want my blood? I couldn't care less. They're deluded, they're delusional, they're malevolent, they're vicious, they're nasty, they spread misinformation and disinformation, and I am not afraid of them or anybody attached to them or anybody that they support. I deal in facts and the truth, and who doesn't like it can lump it. It's as simple as that. So, but thank you very much, Colleen Boyd, for letting me know. And as I said, I'm quivering and quaking in my boots. Oh, H. You want me to go back to England with the babies? No, I can't. I'm so afraid. No, H, I can't. No, let me cock my finger and take tea because I'm so classy. No. I'm afraid I'm not an actress, and nor am I a phony, and nor am I artificial, and nor am I in the slightest bit intimidated by people who deserve to be exposed for what they are. Persecutors or victims? In my opinion, persecutors. Nor am I alone, and let the Sussex Squad continue to rant and rave. I couldn't care less. However, they better do it legally, and they better make sure that they don't stray into unacceptable conduct legally. Otherwise, I will mow them down. I will crush them the way an elephant crushes an ant. That's not a threat. That's a promise. Nancy Kirk says, how are they going to sustain their current lifestyle for the next 10, 20 years? There are only so many books and podcasts. In a decade, he will be nearly 50. She will be well over 50. There is no brand. You can't live a billionaire lifestyle via projects. You have to create a long-term valuable brand. For every goop, there are hundreds of celebrity ranges. Some of them do very well, but there aren't enough to fund mansions and private planes. Once George, Charlotte, and Louis hit their late teens, the focus will be on them. They will all be in the spotlight. with the type of fame no PR firm can purchase. Well, this is a very interesting observation, and I totally agree, and I'm going to address it because I think it hits the nail very firmly on the head. So I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back up. Meghan and Harry had initially the type of fame no PR firm can purchase. They have subverted that, and it has now become infamy because they didn't understand that to become obvious hustlers and let me push my hand in your pocket and see what I can extract from it as I feed my greed. They never understood that that was going to destroy their fame and turn it into infamy. And all royals need to do is present themselves in a decent, attractive, compliant, acceptable manner, and they will be covered in honor and glory. Of course, the press will still niggle, but by and large, they will have genuine fame that cannot be bought by PR firms. A cheap and vulgar hustler like Meghan didn't understand that. And she thought she would capitalize and has failed miserably. And you're right, they are at an age where they are already declining in terms of physical appeal. Now, I speak with a great deal of authority on this subject because I have the experience of having, when I was young, been regarded as extremely desirable. Once you hit the menopausal age, whether you have had the menopause or not, if you are a woman, you will inevitably begin to lose what I have always called the universality of appeal that goes along with fecundity. There is something about biology and about nature that makes women who are of a childbearing age and have a degree of youth, even if they have maturity, a degree of youth that makes, if men don't want to unsheathe their swords, biologically, you can forget it. No matter how beautiful you are, no matter how well dressed, no matter how chic and elegant, you lose your universality of appeal. It's called sex appeal in another way. So they are already on the skids. I mean, Harry has lost all his physical appeal. I mean, he is just so repellent looking now. And he looks as if he not only crawled out of the washing machine, but as if he also ended up spending the night in bed and hasn't brushed his teeth or his hair. He's on the way down. And she, no matter what she wears, no matter how good she looks, her personality swamps any physical appeal she might once have had. And that's while they are still in their 40s. Well, by the time they are in their late 40s, early 50s, you can forget it. they have lost the universality of appeal. It's as simple as that. It's biology. Man's urge to survive and to procreate and perpetuate the species cannot be overridden by William Morris Endeavour stunts or Sunshine Sacks stunts. And Harry and Meghan can throw all the money and all the attention to detail to get themselves in the news that they want. It's not worked, and it's going to work even less because the raw material is not going to be there. Now, if they had dignity and if they had genuinely desirable reputations as they aged, they would have the reverence of age, but they don't, and they're not going to have it unless they get personality implants. Not even transplants, implants. How are they going to sustain their lifestyle? That's a very good question. Quite frankly, they're not going to be able to sustain their lifestyle as it stands. They have failed. They went with they left the royal family and this country in the hope of hitting the big time. And they thought, oh, well, if we save, we're worth 120 million to Netflix and 20 or 25 million or 40 million to Spotify and 20 or 30 million to Penguin Random House, it's going to get so much competition going that everybody else is going to want to give us more. Oh, it's a stupid technique at that level. I mean, it's small-time grifters technique, to have the illusion of greater success than you possess so that you hook bigger fish. But when you are playing for the biggest fish and there are no bigger fish, where are you going to get the money from? Didn't occur to them. That's how bright they are. So I don't know how they're going to sustain their lifestyle. They have a billionaire lifestyle on a millionaire's and a small-time millionaire, not a big-time millionaire's capital. How's that going to work? Who knows? Now, as for the celebrity range, what's it called? A royal opportunist, a right oik, authoritarian. Well, let's not even go there. Let's stop. She doesn't have the prestige. She doesn't have the desirability. She's not a great and famous movie star like Elizabeth Taylor. She is not Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, people forget that Gwyneth Paltrow was an Oscar-winning huge star at a very young age from a very well-established acting dynasty. Her mother was Blythe Danner, the actress, and her father was, if I recall correctly, either producer or director. I don't remember which one he was, but it doesn't matter. He was a figure of some recognition and eminence. She also never traduced anybody. She did not disgrace herself the way Meghan has disgraced herself. Who's going to buy the stuff? If it's expensive, it's out of the range of her supporters. The Sussex Squad are uneducated ignoramuses and usually, if not totally penniless, scratching around at the bottom of the economic barrel, trying to make themselves a few bucks, usually in dodgy ways. Because if they were of a different category, they would be able to make their money in acceptable ways. But making their money as bots and spreading filth and lies about people, decent people like William and Catherine, I don't think so. So I hope that answers the question. Luba Zach says, I am looking forward to reading the updated book. Thank you for educating the world about Meghan's personality disorder. You are an expert because of your mother. My mother was the same, and I was relieved when she died. People who know nothing about these personality disorders can rarely be caught unaware by their vicious behavior, their out-of-control envy and jealousy, as well as their lies and confabulations. Megsy is a classic case. Love your elegance and grace. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Once you've seen it, you know it. And I'll have to tell you, writing Daughter of Narcissus focused my attention and made me realize things that I had never realized about my mother. And also I had to study personality disorders to write the book in an intelligent way. Because, you know, just because you've lived through something, it may make you an expert in terms of experience, but it doesn't make you an expert in terms of overall overriding subject matter. But once you've lived through it, you understand the enormity in a way that people who have not lived through it really don't. But even when you live through it, now this was my experience, with the passage of time, you are willing to give the person another chance. You know, you lapse into thinking that, well, maybe the leopard spots because they're dimmed. The leopard isn't going to swipe you, but it does. And it was writing the book made me intellectually understand aspects of personality disorders as a condition, which I actually hadn't realized. It also, when I was writing things down and having to make sense of them, got a degree of insight, which I have to tell you, I had never really possessed intellectually before. On an atavistic level, I understood, but on an intellectual level, I don't think I actually appreciated fully the extent or the enormity of it. I now do. And that's why I have sympathy for anybody who is caught up in the vice of people like that, because they really are vicious and they are extremely destructive. And they are relentless and unstoppable in terms of their desire to conquer and to prevail. But you can't stop their desires, but you can certainly stop them in their tracks if you know how to deal with them. So, I hope that answers the question. And I'm going to end with what Robin Grieve says. I can only conclude that the royal family was desperate to see Harold married off and gone, to anywhere really. Interesting that no one in the entire Commonwealth or Europe could provide a bride who'd fit his particular bill. So a well-worn American shows up and bang, he's finally found love. I will never forget the expression on Queen Elizabeth's face during that farce of a wedding. And I'm an Aussie, not even English. It must be truly mortifying to live through the results. Well, I have to tell you, my experience of living through a similar situation was mortification is the least of it. And my understanding from people who know very well the sentiments of the participants is that, again, mortification is not the primary issue. It is horrendous to have to live through experiences of this nature. And when you are in the public eye and you have to do it, it makes everything exaggerated and far worse. Yes, your privilege does provide some protection, but if you are in the public eye, the privilege provides some medical and emotional protection, and you do have a wider circle to provide you with support of a particular type. But the downside is that the problem is blown out of proportion in such a magnitudinous way that you are like somebody under attack from all directions, and it takes time to actually regain your equilibrium and realize that you need to cope, even though you wish you didn't have to cope. But you find the strength to cope. Now, the king, bless his soul, has had previous experience of dealing with undeserved attacks. Take it from me, the second time around it's easier. I didn't say it's easy, and I didn't say it's comfortable, and I didn't say it's comforting, but it's easier. Being a public figure, you do have a degree of protection from your status, in that you think, well, people can believe what they want. I'm going to do what I think is right. And I'm just going to have to weather the storm. So you do have a degree of, I suppose, objectivity, and you have a degree of being inured that somebody in a lesser situation would not have. So in some ways, it's better and easier, I would imagine, for somebody in the public eye, although it blows it out of proportion. That doesn't mean that it's not a horrendous experience to go through. But I suppose the bigger your platform, even though you are more exposed, you also have more places to go to, more options, more shelter than somebody who is in a more narrow environment without the support. Because say what you will about people of privileged status, unless they are horrendous individuals, they usually end up having a wide circle of friends who will support them. So they have a bigger life, bigger circles of friends. The problem is magnified on one level, but on another level, it's I suspect is less alienating than somebody who has a very narrow circle of friends or doesn't have a circle of friends and has to cope with these horrendous people doing horrendous things to them. And support in a situation like this is extremely important. Extremely. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care.